And this time we have our client joining us, and it's a special treat because it is a live case study, as you're already used to hearing from our clients their stories. But why do I say this is a special treat is because today we're joined by somebody from sales. We usually hear from marketers, and in fact, in an earlier episode, we heard from Magali's colleague, and today we are going to hear from Magali about account-based journeys, how enterprise sales reps, such as Magali, can create multi-channel and multi-touch journeys to book more sales calls. And like I said, it's very special because we are going to hear from the sales perspective. It's going to be, like always, a live step-by-step case study, as you're used to, sharing as much practical information as possible, but also giving the idea about, let's say, more the strategic decisions that we had to make. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Magali Finet-Perdu. I hope I'm pronouncing this right.
Yes, perfect.
Let her introduce herself. It was a project that we ran. It's, let's say, the end of last year, the second half of last year, together for about 6 months. I believe we worked together, maybe a little bit longer, 6-7 months. And without further ado, please, Magali, welcome. Thank you for coming, and let us know a little bit more about CrossKnowlege and your role there.
Yes, thank you ever so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it was great working with you. So it's I'm really happy to be in your podcast. Maybe what I can say is CrossKnowlege, what we're doing. We are a pioneer in digital learning industry, created 20 years ago, and we target large organizations globally. So CrossKnowlege employs over 150 people, primarily based in Europe, and we operate globally through a vast network of partners. We also serve 500 clients, and we reach 12 million learners. So that's good to give you a context, a global view, an ID card about CrossKnowlege. We build impactful learning programs throughout content library developed with thought leaders, services rolled out by our internal experts, and also learning experiences through our platform. So you asked me a few other questions, but yeah, I'd be glad to continue.
No, I think what would be interesting to know or hear again from your perspective, as somebody who is selling to global enterprises in a market that is, I believe, like very competitive, especially when it comes to the kind of companies that you're trying to sell to. I wonder, like, can you reflect on what are the main sales challenges in such an environment that you're in?
Yes, definitely. So it's clearly a mature and saturated market. And the goal of the leadership team and the marketing leadership team comes from a strategic decision to. There were 3 goals. First, accelerate sales cycle, generate leads, and also increase the signature rate. So yes, it's definitely a mature, and we've been working in this market for the past 20 years. So it's a market we know well.
And if I'm a sales representative and I'm working, let's say, in a SaaS company selling maybe, let's say, a product that costs, I don't know, like $100 per month or $200 per month, versus being in an environment like you, where you have to sell not only products that are much more expensive, but also you're selling into enterprises. These are global organizations with different buying groups, with different people involved from different departments. Could you highlight how is it different for you than, let's say, for maybe somebody who is in a more transactional sales? How would you describe that? What would be maybe the main challenges that you face as an enterprise sales rep?
Yes, maybe the main challenge would be that it's complex. So because we have many people to speak to, there are many decision makers. It's a long process. We know that the budget are decided. They don't decide. They don't buy immediately. So we know they decide for a budget for a long. Either annually or maybe sometimes 3-year period. So 3-year period. So that's part of the challenge we have to cope with. We have to answer.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like an easy job, but I know you're doing an amazing job. So I wanted to then dive into that. But before we do, I was just like wondering, because again, like we usually speak to marketers, and we started this project with your colleague from marketing that had a marketing at the time. And we were basically looking to, how did he call it? I think internally the project was called the GTM Re-Energize. So we were re-energizing or reinventing our go-to-market strategy. It was an initiative that started with marketing, but you decided to join our pilot team at the time from sales. And I just wonder, like, what motivated you to join? And I think, like, from your personal perspective would be nice to hear, but also because like a lot of our listeners are marketers who are struggling to get the buy-in from sales. Yes. So I think, like, think about that and think about like what's your experience been, what motivated you, and maybe you have some advice about how we can think about motivating other salespeople to join programs like this.
Yeah, when I heard about the pilot, I was 100% convinced that it was something I wanted to join. And because initially I've always been inside sales, I've always worked in sales team with a strong understanding of marketing. But what I saw, what the interest I saw was to have an account-based approach. Because I used to work mainly on inbound leads coming from different sources, from events, from downloads, from really a large variety of leads. But I thought it's very important to collect data and to add intelligence to this targeting of accounts. So that enabled me, my goal with the team, and also to have a close collaboration with marketing. It would enable me to be more proactive and to act earlier on in the sales process, so as to make, of course, the great benefit of it is to reduce the length of the sales cycle.
Okay, so I think the advice for everybody is find somebody who is like Magali or hire Magali. No, joking aside, I think what I hear you say is that it was very important for you to be more strategic about how we are targeting the accounts, especially because of what you explained. You explained how it's a decision that is made once, maybe in 3 years. At best, it means once a year. So the timing is so important. So how we prioritize those accounts is important. But at the same time, also because of such long sales cycles and complexity, it wasn't enough just to try to knock on many doors. And then what? If it's not the right time, what do you do? So working with marketing, I assume, was also a way for you to help have more meaningful touch points and conversations with those buyers so that you can be there on the right time. And then also, hopefully, like you said, like when we are at the right time, shorten the sales cycle. Now, we mentioned this several times, and it was in the title. We mentioned multiple touch points, and we use this very complicated title. I now realize account-based journeys, multi-channel, multi-touch. Okay, a lot of jargon there. But to forget about the jargon, I think the best way would be if you could break us an example from all the way from, how you have identified the account, without, of course, giving names or any confidential information, to give an example of maybe one journey, or maybe you can combine several into one, and just give us an example of how you identified starting to engaged, and then eventually moved the prospect all the way to sales. So I would really be curious to hear more. Example, really.
Yeah, it's a very good thing to start from an example, because otherwise I would be very generic, So I picked up an example about a large global industrial account with headquarters in France. Because one of the questions you asked me was, how do you select the accounts? We select the accounts because they match CrossKnowlege priorities, such as headquartered in Europe. They have large transformation. They are multilingual and a global company. We don't know them that much. And also, of course, we think that this company can benefit from our products. I would add also that we see that the HR director and the learning and development teams, who are the people with whom we speak, have a real vision. So those are the few criteria that make us select those specific accounts, because we have to make choices. So with this large industrial and global account, I collaborated very strongly with the account executive to identify the key stakes. So the key stakes that are talent mobility, retention, and enhancing middle manager leadership skills. So those are the stakes, because I have this binôme, this teamwork with the account executive, of course. Once we've done that, I start with identifying the buyers, the potential buyers. So using a tool such as Sales Navigator, which you certainly know well, and starting with both a wide target audience and a more narrow target audience. Okay, so I have two circles, a wide one and a smaller core target of decision makers. Interrupt me if you want, just don't hesitate.
No, I'm enjoying. I'm just taking the notes because I will have to follow up on some of these things. These are gold. So please continue.
Yes. So I start with a wide circle because it creates visibility. And then I will narrow. I will have a focus to core decision makers. So it's approximately, I target 11 people, for instance, for this account, 8 of them connected with me on LinkedIn, and two, and then I had 2 specific targeted people. So maybe what I haven't said is we use a lot social networking for this, to reach those people. That's a condition, of course. It's for them to use, in particular, LinkedIn. So once we've identified those 2 decision makers, why have I selected those 2 people? One is at headquarters, the other one is at the subsidiary, one of the subsidiary. And the goal is to attract their attention in a smart way and related to our business. So we have different techniques. We have playbooks, so I will speak about it a bit later, but we have playbooks, one about a podcast, another one about a market research playbook. We have also thoughtful commenting. And that's really important because this is what creates a direct link and a direct relationship with the contacts. Of course, it's about speaking about things that are relevant to us and to them, and that have a personal link. I'm not talking about Hootsuite, which you certainly know as a way to publish posts, but I'm really talking about thoughtful commenting onto posts.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is a foundation, a very solid foundation, which is about the post-publishing. And the post-publishing is about 5 times a week. So I publish posts 3 to 5 times a week. Wow. That's where the audience listens to me, and this is what creates the visibility within the community, within the account that I'm targeting. Once I've done this thoughtful commenting related to our expertise, related to their posts, to their actuality, I will push the podcast. I will publish the podcast that we've done with my contact, and that's where it creates another level of visibility, because I've done a podcast with this person, because I'm a host of a podcast, of the CrossKnowlege podcast. This person will push it, and it will generate likes within her community. So that's a second step that creates visibility within their community. And okay, so and then the last, I think is the most important step, is to bridge the gap, or maybe I would say to link it to sales. Because of course I'm not doing the podcast, and I'm not doing this thoughtful commenting just for the sake of it. I mean, I'm doing it because we want to push our expertise. We think that it answers our potential customers' needs, and I want to introduce the sales within the cycle. That's where I create the link with the sale, and I introduce the sales account executive to my contact.
And yeah, do you want to add something, or?
Oh, I have plenty of things to add. So, but I let you ask your questions before.
Okay. I have many. But basically, like to very quickly summarize. So first of all, how you select accounts is strategic. You have a number of criteria that you have identified that are important for you. You know from history what kind of accounts are a better fit. You have formalized that with those criteria, and that's what you use to prioritize. That's very important. And then the collaboration with the account executives, and I'd like to ask a follow-up question in a moment, but just to finish the wrap-up, starting to collaborate with the account executive actually quite early. I'm quite surprised. Like usually reps might start this collaboration later, but it's really good, and I'd like to know why in a moment. Then the way that you create awareness. So you first identify the buying group, and I love the 2 circles and the way that you have described. So when people think about channels and how I can use channels to influence my decision makers, they usually think about things like LinkedIn, or I don't know, like maybe webinars, or ads or email or whatever. But what I hear from you is actually the best channel are people, like people that they connect to. So if you create engagement with the wider circle, the people who also influence the buying process or who are connected to your core decision makers, you're much more likely to be seen and noticed by them. And not only that, but the same decision makers, they trust their peers and their colleagues much more than they trust, unfortunately, salespeople and unfortunately vendors in general. So I think that's very smart. And then the way that you attract attention, I thought that was also really cool, because it's not about reaching out cold and hoping, oh, I have identified 8 people, so let's just send 8 cold emails and cross fingers, maybe one of them will respond. You're actually using thoughtful commenting on their post. If they're posting, you're also posting yourself 5 times a week. That's incredible, and something to maybe unwrap in a moment. You're even like running and hosting a podcast that allows you to, so there's like all these different things that you're doing to create attention in a meaningful way. And I also love how you described it. It's not just about commenting. It's not just about posting. It is about finding this section between your solution and their world, their challenges, their priorities. So I thought that was also very smart. And then with the podcast, I understood you connect much more deeply. You have the opportunity to learn much, much more about the target account, their priorities, their challenges, etc., which then allows you to go to the next step and working with the AE, which kind of brings the whole circle back to the AE. And that was my first question I wanted to follow up with, which was, you said at the beginning, well, like maybe you can describe how you collaborate with the AE, and specifically I'm also interested when you mention like together you identify their key stakes, I assume like their key priorities and challenges. How do you do that, and how does that collaboration look like? I'm really curious.
Well, for me, it's natural to work with AE because I've always been in sales teams. So it's quite, it's very concrete. They have to gather information, okay? So they have to do their job of collecting data about the stakes, going to the annual report, going in the CRM, see what is our existing, whether there was existing contact with them. So they have to do their job. There is some responsibility on their side too. Even so, then I continue the action. Yeah, that's the contact and the relationship with the AE. And then what I introduced, and that's really important, is to introduce them earlier in the process. Because they have so much to say, okay? So and I want them to be there during my first meetings with the contact, with the prospect. We work together, and it's not just me. It's also the AE to be there right at the beginning, even so I am the one who is leading the discussion, whether it is for the podcast or whether it is for the market research. They will be there and they will get a lot of information, and it will be much easier afterwards, once they're on their own without me, to have this trustful relationship and discussion.
Oh, I can honestly see how that works, but sometimes it has been my experience with the account executives that they're like more interested in engaging with the target accounts only when there is an actual sales qualified opportunity, when they're sure that they can do their demo and they can start engaging the decision makers and making a deal. So I think it's also maybe goes to kind of testimony to the kind of team that you have and the relationship. But do you have any tips about how we should approach, if somebody has that question, how they should approach the account executive in the right way so that they can engage them earlier, although there may not yet be that buying intent?
Yes, it's true that it wasn't done by a magic wand, they see the benefit of it because it took us months. Well, it's a change management process.
Okay.
They have to see the benefit from ABM themselves, and it took time to show them. So maybe I'm going to jump a little bit quicker to another question, but it's really. It's really interesting. The change management, you have to show them the benefit from LinkedIn profile, education. Okay, so they have to fit they have to improve their LinkedIn profile. We have to share best practices with them as well, template messages, etc., etc. But I will speak about it later. But yeah, it's it doesn't happen just like that, clearly.
Okay. So there are some secrets to the trade. Then I wanted to highlight one of the things that you mentioned. You mentioned that you're posting 5 times a week on LinkedIn. How do you manage to do that? Like a lot of salespeople that I know, A, don't say they don't have the time, and B, they say they don't feel like they have enough expertise to be able to actually create LinkedIn content and post. So how do you deal with that?
Yes. With post-publishing, well, first of all, what I wanted to say is one of the strengths of CrossKnowlege is we have a lot of internal expertise. Mm-hmm. Because we build programs, learning programs with storytelling, with content, different sources of content, etc. We have the expertise internally. We have learning design, we have marketing, learner marketing, we have services. So it's part of it is internal. So we can rely on subject matter experts internally to produce our content. So I do produce my own content. It happens that I produce my own content, relying on subject matter experts. And then we have also the marketing team producing the content with the SME, with the subject matter experts. And also with all the meetings I have, with the quiz that people fill in, the mini researches, the podcast, I gather information. So the data I collect from the market, immediately we use it for our posts. So that's why our posts, they're not something that are not linked to the market. That's where we really managed to break the silos between marketing and sales. This is where the marketing gets very quickly, I mean, one day after the meeting, they get my data about the meetings, and they can build really relevant content that matches, that speak to people, that speak to our audience.
Okay, I love it. So it's basically ensuring that the content topics and the content itself resonates with buyers in the most simple way. You use the insights from those conversations to drive your content strategy, topics, planning, etc. So this is wonderful. And I also wanted to highlight one more thing that you mentioned as we are reviewing your journey, right? You mentioned a podcast, and you mentioned how this allows you to connect to the target buyer and get more insight. But you also mentioned something that I really liked, the visibility within their community. That is maybe another way to say it. I like to think about it as micro networking. So you are not connecting, you're not like publishing a podcast that is like, I don't know, like Tim Ferriss reaches millions of people and this is how you're creating this visibility. You're publishing a very niche podcast. There may not be like thousands or millions of people listening to it, but what is 100% sure is that because you're interviewing their colleague, that colleague of that person that you have interviewed are going to see that when you share it. And it's a very easy way for you to connect to them. And maybe, I don't know if that happens, but I have noticed that, I don't know if it happens with you, is that they're peers. So obviously they didn't like work their whole life only in that company. They worked in other companies who may be similar, who may be your target accounts, right? So they are connected to their peers in the industry. So they have this like network around themselves that you create awareness with. It. This, how did you call the visibility within the community? I loved it. I just wanted to highlight this for everybody to understand. And then one last question that I had about the last step, which was about introducing the account executive. We really went into that, but wanted to link back to this idea of now we know their challenges, now we know their stakes and what's important to them, their priorities, what they need. So how do you bridge like all these touch points, nice conversation and everything to saying basically, okay, now let's go and have a conversation about how we might be able to help you. Like it's really a bridge. I don't think it's, you just say, oh, thank you for the podcast. do you want to buy our solution? But there is something that happened in the meantime, and how do you bridge that, and how do you, maybe let's start with that.
Yeah, it's a lot about sharing best practices. So because we've done what we do for the past 20 years, more than 20 years, they know that we have knowledge about what we do. We have a lot of projects. Okay, we can talk about so many projects, and also we value the client cases, of course, and we value their knowledge. So I think that's where we bridge the gap. It's about we. If I don't know whether I've answered your question, but if I understand correctly, it's during this process of the meeting that I will do with the account executive. How does this happen? Is it the question you have?
With the buyer. So with the buyer, so you've spoken to your prospect, for example, during the podcast interview, or in another way, right? So you mentioned you have other ways like research, market research, etc., right? So these are all non-commercial activities. These are all relationship building activities. You're co-creating content. You're definitely getting the insights, but they're not commercial. So nobody wants to be invited to the podcast and then pitched. Like nobody wants this. What they call in I think in the United States they call it bait and switch, right? So you bait them with this, and then you switch, and then you pitch them, right? You're not. I'm sure you're not doing that. So this is what I'm wondering. Like from the perspective of the buyers, how do you bridge from like having this conversation, this relationship, and then going into a more commercial conversation about how you might be able to help them?
Yeah, it's all about asking and interesting ourselves into what they say. You see, so it's really about asking questions. If they know that we interest ourselves into what they say, first of all, they will listen to us more carefully, because they know that we pay attention to them. So it's human psychology, you see. We pay attention to what they say. We value their expertise. We want to make it known to the community, to a larger community. And naturally, we will be able to match what they said about their stakes, about their challenges, about what they have, their existing ecosystem. We will be able to match it to what has happened at our clients, because there are two things that interest them. Is speaking about their experience is interesting, okay, and then listening to what others are doing. I think that's really human beings are curious, and in particular in business world, you want to know what either your competitor or your neighbor is doing in the same field. So that's where I think we managed to make this transition to what we can bring them and the benefit they can gain from our product, our solution, our expertise.
Okay, I love it. So it's like the buyers trust their peers. They want to know what the other people are doing. The reason why we have here people listening to this podcast is not because they want to learn from me. They came to learn from you yourself. You are their peer. They came here to learn from you. They're more interested to hear from somebody who is like them. How do you struggle with the challenges that I also have, right? And you use that by basically sharing client stories, case studies. So you recognize, okay, you guys are struggling with this challenge. We saw this challenge with this client. I can share more information about how they have solved it. Again, it's not about you. It is about the other client who is their peer. So this is perfect. I absolutely love it. Now we got a question, and I'll get to this question in a moment, but I think it's just to keep kind of a logical order. So I understand that you basically, with this approach, you have changed, and I haven't heard a lot of salespeople honestly talking about their sales process in the way that you're talking, and I think it is a big change, right? And I just wonder, like, from purely KPI metrics perspective, what has been the results of implementing this program? What has been results of the change of the way, of the new version of the process, of the change process, of what you have described with us? Is there something that you could share with us to understand?
In terms of results, you mean from the IBM approach?
KPIs, metrics, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what I can say is, over a 6-month period, out of 130 target accounts, we managed to engage them. We managed to engage 35 accounts, involving multiple meetings and project discussions. So wow. That's more than by emailing, of course, and it's much more qualitative. So yeah, and behind that, behind the curtains, there are a lot of benefits and qualitative benefits too.
Okay, can you share those?
Yes, of course. So there is a stronger perception as that we are pairs to our clients, that we are part of the community. So directly from that, what we get is we receive more strategic and early of the record information. So we get earlier information, relevant information. We speak also, another benefit is we speak directly to directors and top executives. Okay, we are at the right level. And we know earlier if there is a budget or not. So about buying intention. So that's the main benefit from it.
So essentially, out of your 130 target accounts, or 32, you were able to not engage, but actually have multiple conversations with 26%, which is 27, almost 26.9 something, which is just amazing. I think this is really amazing. People don't get this kind of reply rates, let alone a meeting rate. So that's just a mind-blown result. But you also mentioned being perceived more as a trusted advisor, or like you say, like peer, part of the community. So trust is higher, and then they open up earlier to you, learn earlier, you learn better. And of course, the fact that you're able to not just engage, let's say, lower, maybe individual contributors or mid managers, but actual directors and executives, gives you the right type of insight about the buying intent, budgets, etc. So love it. Now, I think Lina asked a really good question, and I'll try to share. Yes. How do they measure top of the funnel activity and know they're on the right track? So especially, I think, like, a lot of people are asking themselves, okay, if we are starting with this program, we know with long sales cycles, we are not going to see immediate revenue results. And I'm sure this was the case with you. Like, you start something, it's different, it takes time. So how do you measure? So what Lina is referring to is top of funnel activity, like early signals, or that you're going in the right direction. Do you have any, maybe formal or informal, how do you know that you're going in the right direction?
Okay, so my answer is as a sales. Okay, so I will say my campaign lasts 2 months. Okay, so I rotate the accounts. Okay, I have main target of 7 to 10 accounts per 2 months period. So that's my goal, is to generate interest and meetings at the end of this 2 months period. If there is no result, I'm not going to give up completely the account. I will keep them at a lower level of engagement, but I keep them in my radar. Okay, I want them still to see me. So maybe it's not a direct answer to what Lina asked, but that's what I see. If at the end of the 2 months I don't get any response, no meeting, or I get a response, but it doesn't lead to a real meeting with the AE, then I will switch and I will come back 4 months later.
Okay. So here's what I took out to translate it into marketing speak. I will try. Yes. So first of all, I think we know that kind of the ultimate leading indicator or the early measure, not so early, but it can be leading, is being able to have to have conversations with the buyers already is like a big achievement for a lot of people. And I think when you're even talking to sales, everybody will accept, okay, if I'm able to talk to the right people, more people, and as we see, like 26% is an amazing number. So I'm able to talk to more of the right people is an amazing signal that everybody is going to approve as an early indicator. But we also know from experience that people don't just agree to talk to you on the first touch point. Like they don't just you don't just reach out to them and say, hey, can we have a meeting? So you see that they are maybe engaging with the content that you're sharing. Maybe you're having some conversation in the comments. Maybe you're first having some conversation in LinkedIn or in email, etc., which are not yet the meeting. So I assume this would be another metric that I think, Lina, teams can use. This is, for example, out of the target accounts that we're going after, how many of them end up in back and forth online conversation and engagement, right? So engagement, social email conversation, meetings, opportunities, pipeline, sales, like in that order. And I think I spoke to a lot of teams, and a lot of teams say, okay, if we are able to engage more of the right type of accounts and end up with more conversations, it's already a great leading indicator. So with that out of the way, let's go to the next point. And I think you answered this. So and at the beginning, you said something about how difficult it is to get there on the right time. They don't change their approach every month or every 6 months, maybe sometimes not even a year, but every 3 years. So then the question becomes, okay, how do you stay top of their mind? And I think you just explained it, right? It's like you have multiple touch points, but also you rotate the accounts. Okay, I tried different ways to engage these accounts during 2 months. It didn't work. Okay, let's leave them cool down a little bit. It wasn't relevant. I'll try at a later moment. Is that what you do?
Yes, because there is a need for intensity. Okay, so if it's too dilué, I don't know how you say it in English, but if I want to raise awareness, if I want to make myself visible among the contacts and the prospects and their community, I need to make the post being seen and etc. So that's why I need to rotate, is to make the algorithm work properly in my benefit. Yeah.
Okay. I do remember after having that initial pilot and after seeing these results in terms of how many meetings you are able to book compared to the previous result, that your sales director reached out to us and said, okay, is there a way that we can involve more salespeople in the program and teach them more? So I was just wondering what your experience was, okay, going beyond the pilot, because it's been a while. It's been like more than a year right now. And yeah, if you have any advice for teams that maybe have done some initial trials, etc., and they want to scale their pilot and involve maybe more salespeople in these activities.
Yes, with teams, with sales teams, it's important to realize that, of course, they have to answer tender bids, they have to answer RFI, RFP. So there is a big peaks of activity, and then they get lower activity. So that's something to be taken into account. the second thing to be taken into account with sales is some of them don't want to be engaged publicly on LinkedIn. Some just don't feel like publishing posts because it's too personal. They don't want to produce podcasts either. Again, they don't feel at ease with it. So. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to, for instance, update their profile. So maybe the first foundation is to make them understand that updating a good LinkedIn profile is important. And also you can start with, so doing a workshop around that, that's the first step. You can also share best practices about what are good sequences. If you have someone who does good sequences, then you can share best practices to the whole team. That's a benefit that they can see from your actions. Another thing is to start with one account executive who is open to ABM. So because starting with one account executive who has five large accounts and who will be engaging to do ABM over those 5 accounts, that's more possible. Okay, starting with one account executive, develop best practice with him or her, share it to the community, and at the same time create a foundation of good practices around ABM.
So I think it's actually quite a logical framework, right? So the first thing you need to do is do it yourself so you can demonstrate the results. That's when they will start to listen. They will be interested to know, okay, how can you do this? What are you doing differently? Then the second step is choose your champion, choose somebody who is more engaged, who is more likely to, let's say, champion your this approach. It always makes me think of this video that I saw about one guy starting a dance party at the music festival, right? So he's like, everybody's like listening to music, and then this one guy alone starts dancing crazy, like starts dancing around, and slowly you see there is another person, then another person. At the end, there is a dance party. And I think this is what you have described a little bit. Start with one, and then go from there. And then, of course, like the best way, like, okay, this is your perspective because you're part of the team, but like maybe for somebody who is trying to help the team is share the best practices of internal people like yourself, like those colleagues that you work with, share them with the rest of the team, like the peer-to-peer learning rather than top-down. So
and may I add something? May I add something? I am within the sales team, within the enterprise team. So we manage the larger account at CrossKnowlege. But I am into also a transversal team, functional, I don't know how you would say, but we are a team. But with 2 other colleagues at marketing. You see, we work, the 3 of us, it's an informal team, but it's a real team. So I am from the sales team, and I work with 2 people from marketing. And so that's where we are able to break the silos. Okay, the 3 of us. We show them, we develop the best practices, and we develop the best practices within the marketing team and within the sales team. So it doesn't rely just on one person.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Cross-functional team.
Yes,
they're working
exactly.
on your side, you're working. I love it. I love it. And I have to ask this question, being working for Fullfunnel, this being the live case study, from your just perspective, honestly, like how important was having a consulting partner to help you implement this, such as you working with us with a Fullfunnel? Like, was was this something you would recommend others to work with a consulting partner? Like, would this make any difference for you?
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, because I had the intuition when I entered the ABM pilot. I had the intuition that the direction was the one I wanted to take. But then you have to. In many times, I was under the impression, and I had the feeling that I was going just outside of my comfort zone. You see, so of course, then you do it because you know that you can rely on somebody who has the best practices, best practices. And sometimes we challenge each others, or maybe I don't agree on something. I mean, I saw things maybe that are a bit different because of our industry. But basically, it's really that it's being able to do things that we know are going to improve tremendously our efficiency. So it's from for instance, the management of the touch point. Okay, so the management of the touch point, to me, that was really great. The way you helped us implementing it. The way you advised us on communicating with the audience, with the target we have, with the people we want to reach, how to position ourselves as experts, because we have this huge knowledge and case studies, and really at CrossKnowlege, it's tremendous the amount of great content we have in terms of marketing, but how to bring it towards the people we want to speak. So that's the way you really helped us to position ourselves, and that was very resourceful and really valuable.
Thank you very much. I see that there are a few questions by the audience. Before we go into that, I know that some people maybe have to log off. Let us know in the comments. We heard from Peyton. I want to share this. It was so cool. I'm taking notes so fast, not even worried about typos. Keep on sharing with with us your wisdom, Magali. We really appreciate it. I felt the same, by the way. Just wanted to share this piece of feedback. Another one from Andres, down-to-earth, real-world experiences that are based on working backwards from what customers care about. Much appreciated. Love the comment. So let us know in the chat what you thought of the episode. We'll address the 3 questions that I have here in the Q&A section. If you still have a question, we still have a few minutes that we can take them on. Otherwise, let us know what you thought, whether maybe you can just leave a thumbs up or thumbs down, plus or minus, if that's easier for you. Always want to hear from our audience. And while you're typing, I wanted to share the questions. So Katie is asking the 5 posts that you're publishing each week about, is it about your company or about the target account's company?
Very good question. Actually, it's about learning and development field. So it's about questions that our audience, our target audience, are asking themselves. So we are pushing our knowledge, things that we think they should do to be better at their job, basically, if I can say it simply. So we are not pushing. So we are not pushing our product in a very advertising way, and we are pushing things that can help our clients.
I love it. I couldn't have said it better. I think I love it. So I shared the next one. Did you see the same leading indicators that we shared and my engagement? with enterprise with multiple stakeholders and buyers. I think everything you shared, it is about enterprise with multiple stakeholder and buyers. So the 132 accounts, these are all enterprise accounts, correct?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So that was an easy one. You wanted to add something?
No. That's exactly. It's multiple touch points, multiple ways of connecting to them within large organization above 5,000 employees.
Okay, about 5,000 employees. And then the last question that I have here, and like I said, anybody's welcome to raise another one. For social listening, and I assume it's meant to also to collect the insights from your potential customers, from your prospects, to understand what the stakes are, etc. I think you already shared, but Peyton was asking, like, what did you use? Did you use some specific tools? Maybe you have some practical advice for people on how they can get these insights to understand what's happening at the target accounts companies, in the maybe target buyers, what their priorities are, what their challenges are, what their department's priorities are, whatever is useful for you to know.
We don't use tools like SparkToro. No. We work about data analysis based on how could I say it? But it's both. I mentioned annual reports, for instance. We also go to events that are more specialized, so we might collect data based on their vertical, and then we also have a collaborative approach. So that doesn't mean that's the big change. It's not going to be just the knowledge of the network of a single account executive who will think, oh, by the way, this is an account because I know one person there. It's always a collaborative decision-making process between sales and marketing.
Okay, so you're talking about your team internally, right?
Yes.
So it's the account executive who is involved. It's yourself who are doing the research. It's also marketing. It's people who are attending the events. So you're collaboratively gathering this information to create a view into your target accounts and target audience.
And it's important to have a routine. It's something that is within our agenda. It's something that because you have to do it frequently on a regular basis. That's also the key to the success.
Yeah, that's a good one. And one last question, I think, before we wrap up. A new question came from Agustina. She's asking about, have you seen a difference in the results obtained depending on the region or a country? Are there some markets, countries where people are more likely to respond?
That's a good question. I used to have a direct approach of calling, for instance, and a very sales and direct approach. So that's where people told me, in Germany, they don't really like this direct approach. Okay. But with regards to ABM, I didn't see much difference. I'm working in Germany. I'm working with German people. I'm working with people based in the UK, in China as well, in the States. I work with different countries, and I haven't identified big differences. They react very positively to podcast requests. They react very positively to mini researchers or to market research. So that's my conclusion for the feedback I have, personal feedback.
Awesome. Honestly, I was reflecting as you were saying, and obviously there are cultural differences in terms of the way that people maybe communicate, make decisions, etc. What kind of how open they may be in the conversation, etc. But you're right. My experience was similar. I don't really have like, oh, this kind of countries is different from that perspective, from the perspective of engaging, appreciating good content, appreciating good advice, proper way of building relationships. I think we all value that. And I think also in today's world, I guess we crave that as well a little bit, like something where we are treated with respect and get value before, and we are not like just cold pitched and treated as a list of prospects that somebody uploaded somewhere and is just trying to get our wallets. This was wonderful. I have enjoyed it so much. I have learned, although that we worked together, I was part of a project, well, maybe not for the whole time, but at the beginning and at some key moments, but I knew a lot about the project, but I felt I learned so much today from you. So thank you so much for sharing so openly. I know this is kind of your philosophy. That's what you told me. So where can people, if they want to know more, if they want to keep on sharing and learning from you, what is the best place for them to find you?
Yes, of course. They can contact me via LinkedIn, and I'd be delighted to have more in-depth discussion about best practices. And of course, they connect to me to LinkedIn with pleasure.
Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to definitely share, if that's okay with you, Magali, to share it in the podcast notes so that people can connect.
Of course.
I'm going to also drop your profile here in the chat for people who are attending live. Well, with that said, thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you.
And good luck. Many, many more accounts, results, sales wished in 2025.
Thank you very much, Vlad. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
You can leave stage. You can go down and leave. Yeah.